Welcome to Sit, Stay, Read, the podcast for every wag, whinny, and whisker. I'm Kathleen Donnelly, award-winning author and retired canine handler. Each week, I chat with novelists about the bond we share with our furry friends and how they inspire stories. Grab a coffee, get cozy with your favorite pet. It's time to sit, stay, read. Well, today I'm delighted to be joined by Jeannée Sacken, the author of the novel The Women Who Stand Between. This is a beautiful story about courage and compassion. Jeannée, I'm so excited to chat with you today about how this story came to be, the animals, your photography. There's just so many meaningful things in this novel. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I have watched so many of your podcasts, and from your podcasts and your own writing, I have discovered canine stories, and I have been binge reading canine stories all winter as the snow piles up around me here in Wisconsin.
Well, there's nothing better to read when the snow's piling up. Although your book, oh my gosh, you brought in some really different animals that we don't often, I shouldn't say we don't often see them in fiction, but you have like your canine genre and cats and horses and all that. But you brought in animals from Africa in such a beautiful way. So why don't you just start off by telling us about the women who stand between?
Well, the story is that Julia Wild is one of the best wildlife cinematographers in the business. But while she's on a photo shoot in southern Africa, specifically in Zimbabwe, um, she finds herself unfairly blamed when several of her crew members are killed. And as a result, she ends up blacklisted from Hollywood, can't get a job. To make ends meet, she takes a teaching job in a film department at a Midwestern university, only to discover that getting tenure is dependent on her making another film. So
Yes.
after a few years, she rounds up some still loyal filmmaking friends, and they head back to Zimbabwe to make a documentary of the Mambas, a fierce all-female anti-poaching unit who risk their lives every day to protect endangered species. And they are literally known as the women who stand between animals and poachers and extinction. But as Julia soon learns, standing behind the lens of her cine camera is no protection from the poachers who will do whatever it takes to make sure this film never sees the light of day.
Yeah, it is. There's so many elements. And I think one of the things I love the most, sort of a theme I felt like came out was just really courageous women. Julia's courageous, but the Black Mambas, and I was doing a little research. It sounds like this is a real organization. I didn't realize that when I started
Yeah.
reading your book. So tell us more about them. Like, how did you find out about them? I would love to think I would be that brave to go out and do what they do. But, truly, it's extraordinary. It really is.
Well, I have spent a lot of time in Zimbabwe on photo shoots, and the place I love more than almost any place on earth is Hwange National Park, which
Okay.
is in the Ndebele land. It's the southern tier of Zimbabwe.
Okay.
And this is a place where if you go on safari, you're the only vehicle you ever see.
Wow.
And I was
Wow.
there in 2018 to film the Great Elephant Migration that goes from the Kaza Transfrontier in Angola through Namibia, down through Botswana, and then the length of Hwange National Park. And I just knew I had to write about that in some way and in a fiction kind of way. And while I was there, I learned things that I didn't know. First, that white rhinos had been poached to extinction in Hwange National Park in about 2006, 2007.
Wow.
And the poachers were run by cartels, but the people who did the actual poaching were young men living in the villages all along the national park boundary.
Wow.
And the unemployment rate in Zimbabwe hovers between 85 and 95%, and
Wow.
especially in the rural areas. And so these young men are poaching because they have to feed their families. And
Yeah.
it's actually easier to poach with a group that's run by a cartel. And often they get paid nothing because they're being told you
Wow.
have to pay back for your gun or you have to pay back
Wow.
for your uniform.
Wow.
So I had been working with an organization called Imvelo, Imvelo, and they came up with the idea of creating a rhino sanctuary midway along the
Yes.
boundary park. And they would work with the headmen in some of these villages. They would bring in two male white rhinos to start, and they would hire villagers, the young men
Nice.
in the villages, to guard them 24/7. And they would train them, give them guns, give them uniforms. And many of these young men were the actual poachers. But now all of a
Yeah.
sudden, they had paying jobs, they had their communities looking up to them, they were able to feed their families legally and lawfully. And
Yeah.
so that in 2018, they brought in the two, um, no, sorry, in 2022, they brought in the first two
Okay.
rhinos, Tusa and Kuzasa. And
Uh-huh.
my husband and I happened to be there on a photo shoot, and we were the first non um, cobras to walk with these two rhinos. And the
Wow.
cobras were the name of the men who were guarding, who were the anti
Okay.
poachers. And I talked with these guys, and the guys, they were just being trained. And that night we were staying in the rhino sanctuary. We went back the next morning. Our ranger came and said, "Look, the rhinos followed you back to your villa. You can see their bodies
So
asleep
cool.
in the sand." And
Oh.
and then we went back 2 years later, and the rhinos came running up to us. They remembered
Oh my
us.
gosh.
And the thing that is really cool, so I like to write about women, and these
Yeah.
cobras were men. But I started researching and I discovered the black mambas.
Okay.
And the black mambas are actually in all the other national parks in Zimbabwe
Nice.
and some in South Africa, and they're women. And they, in Zimbabwe and South Africa, they may or may not be armed. And they go out on these frequent patrols trying to find evidence of poachers, snares, what have you.
Okay.
And so I said, I'm going to fictionalize them and make them mambas.
Nice.
And I sent the women who stand between to my
Yes.
people in Zimbabwe, and they read it. And I heard a year ago in the spring, before it came
Mhm.
out, that they said, she's got women in her book. We need to have a women's division. And so they started
Okay.
recruiting women and they named them cheetahs.
Okay.
So now we have the women cheetahs and the men cobras, and they protect these rhinos. And they've now brought in
Mhm.
two more rhinos for they're bit by bit extending this rhino sanctuary.
Oh, I
So
love that. I love that. Are there any baby rhinos yet?
now
Do
all
we
the
have
rhinos
more?
that I had thought, and I had been told that the next two rhinos they were bringing in, who were brought in a year and a half ago, would be female.
Okay.
And
Oh, yeah, because the first two, yes. Okay.
and
Yes.
then when we got there, we were told, well, we decided to bring in two more males because
Okay.
male white rhinos are super territorial, and we wanted them to establish their territories before we brought in any females. So the
Interesting.
next crew that's brought in will be females.
Okay, so we have a little bit of a wait, but there's hopefully some babies in the future, and hopefully you get to go photograph them.
Yeah, and baby rhinos actually have a pretty long gestation period.
I bet
So,
they do. Is it like elephants? Or are
yeah.
they even longer? Okay.
And
Yeah.
elephants have the longest gestation period, and then
Okay.
rhinos are second.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Well, let's talk about the elephants because they
Yeah.
play a big role in your book too. There's some rhinos, but wow, the elephants. I felt like through your book you were showing us your love for these animals. Have they become some of your favorites, or do you have a favorite? Can you have a favorite?
It's so hard. I adore wild dogs, also known as painted wolves, that are critically endangered. I love big cats. I could sit all day watching big cats,
Yeah.
and especially lions with their family dynamics, but I love leopards and cheetah as well. And uh, elephants just hold a magical place for me. Um,
Yeah.
I have done this great elephant migration 2 times, and it's, like 35,000 elephants and me in a Jeep going along photographing that.
It's
It's
amazing.
magic. It's just
Yeah.
phenomenal. But that said, there are a lot of other animals that come up on the Veld, and I photograph them all. And it's where I want to be in my life.
I love it. And usually I save all the social media info to the end, but your pictures are phenomenal. I
Oh,
love visiting your Instagram and just going scrolling through the pictures. So and am I remembering right? Is it Jeannée Sacken at Jeannée Sacken for Instagram?
I think it's Jeannée Sacken author or author
Okay.
Jeannée Sacken, something like
Okay.
that. And
Okay.
Facebook is just Jeannée Sacken, and my website is jeannesacken.com.
Perfect. And I'll have the website in my show notes and anyone listening. I mean, you have beautiful pictures on your website but Instagram's fun just to scroll through the feed, just the way it's laid out. And so yeah, they're just amazing. I'm like, wow, you're my hero. I would love to go photograph something like that. So speaking of heroes, we have this amazing main character, Julia, and I see some parallels between her and you with the teaching and the photography and cinematography. How much of Julia is you? How closer is her character to you?
She has red hair.
That too. Yes, yes.
She's significantly younger than I am, and she's a cinematographer. I am a photographer,
Okay.
which uh, I started out teaching at a university, and I was at Rochester Institute of Technology in Rochester, New York, home of Eastman Kodak. And one of the
Oh, wow.
colleges at
Okay.
RIT was the Eastman College of Photography. And so I had a number of friends there, and one of them said to me, "Hey, I'm going on a photo shoot to Zimbabwe. You want to come along?" I said, yeah. So I went in a couple days early, and I had a sangoma who is a healer and a seer, a traditional healer and seer, often also
Okay.
the head man of the village, as is Solomon in my book. And I had him throw the bones for me. And he's put 4 carved bones, probably chicken bones, in my hands and said, "Close your hands over them and think about your problem." And I'm like, I don't have a problem. I am doing exactly what I want to do with my life. But somewhere in there, I started thinking about my father, who had just passed away a couple of years
Yeah.
before. And his final words to me were, "Don't die with regrets." And then he
Oh,
passed
wow.
away, which was pretty powerful. And
Yeah.
so I'm holding these bones and thinking, not much of anything. And give them back to the Sangoma, and he throws them, and looks up at me and says, "You did not do what I told you to do.
Oh my
You
goodness.
were supposed to think about your problems." I'm like, "Oh, all right." I take the bones again. And this time I'm really thinking about my father. Okay, don't die with regrets. What should I be doing so that I don't die with regrets? I give back the bones, and I had not told this Sangoma anything about me.
Yeah.
This time he's looking at the bones, studying them from all different angles, and he finally looks up and says, "You're a teacher."
Wow.
You teach literature. You teach people how to understand stories, but you have your own stories to tell and your own stories to photograph. You need to do what will make you
Yes.
happy. And in that moment, I said, I need to get back to writing, and you're going to be in a book that I write. So that's really
I
where the
love it.
genesis of his character began. And a few months later, my friend said, "You want to go to Honduras for a photo shoot?"
Mhm.
So off we went. We're on a narrow gauge train on the Mosquito Coast. I'm being eaten alive by mosquitoes. And I see a woman off in the distance with a big pole pounding it into what looks like a long sock. And I tap my fixer, "What's she doing?" And he says, "I don't know. You want to find out?" I figured "you want to find out" meant stopping the train. We get off, we ask her, we get back on the train. No,
Right. That's what I would think.
it
Yeah.
meant slowing the train. We went leaping off the train,
Oh
landing
my
on
goodness.
hands and knees in the loamy jungle. And then we went and asked her, and I'm looking at the train leaving. And I said, "When's the next train?" And he said, "Next Tuesday. Is that a problem?"
Oh my gosh.
So we went, and the woman was pounding cassava root to make cassava tortillas, and she and her sister in this little
Oh.
tiny village were the only people who brought in an income. And so she said, "Oh, come to my village. I want you to meet my sister." So we did, and we're photographing her and her sister. And it was 120 degrees and
Oh my
100%
gosh.
humidity. I am just, sweat is pouring off me. I'm shooting film. My fixer is wiping down one camera, loading in film while I'm shooting from another. And then he nudges me. He goes, "Look." And there's the whole village standing around this open air kitchen chanting, "National Geographic, National Geographic." So I went home, and I could not get out of my mind the feeling of soaring through the air off this train.
Yeah.
And I resigned my tenure and
Oh my
decided to
gosh.
become a photojournalist. And for a long time, I traveled the world photographing women and children, their lives, their
Wow.
work. And then I still do that, but I am much heavier into photographing wildlife now. My initial writing, I started short stories. I'm a terrible short story writer.
I feel you
I
there.
moved I moved to novellas, and nobody wanted to buy novellas. They're hot now,
Mhm.
but nobody wanted them then. And so in 2009, I wrote a book called Talking Bones, and it was a YA story
Oh,
about a
cool.
girl going from New Jersey going to Zimbabwe, and stuff happens. Um, I got one of the agents, and she
Nice.
said it's going to go at auction. It didn't go at all.
Oh
It
no.
and a few years later, she said, Jeannée, I've been talking with the other agents, and we don't think you're a YA writer. We think
Oh,
you're probably a suspenseful women's fiction writer." So I wrote the Annie Hawkins series, 4 books in that, and then I wrote The Women Who Stand Between. And she was
yeah.
right. I
Yeah.
was not a YA writer.
Well, you could be both. You leave that door open because I could see you inspiring young women through your writing. So I'm just gonna throw that out there because there's so
So,
many,
yeah.
yeah,
So I like writing strong women. And Julia is definitely a strong woman
she
who
is.
goes through a horrible Me Too moment when her
Yes.
executive producer basically tries to rape her, and she fends him off. And um, that's all in the first chapter of the book
Yes,
after
it is.
she sees these lions who come down to the watering hole, probably to kill a baby elephant, although they don't.
Yeah.
And so she she creates this documentary a few years later about other really strong, powerful women.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful story because I felt like she had to go through her own period of healing through all this and trying not to spoil too much. I don't want to totally give away everything that happens to her because it's very suspenseful, but there's healing, there's courage, and I love that she does come back to this and sort of finds her way unexpectedly, I felt. I don't know if that's how you felt about it, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well, I wanted her to be conflicted all the way through.
yeah,
I mean, being able to earn a living is really important to her. And,
yeah,
she goes back to Zimbabwe and makes this documentary in order to get tenure to have that kind of financial and
yeah.
psychological security. But then once she gets tenure, I'll give that much away. Um, there are still conflicts.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
she
there
still
are.
has decisions to make.
Yeah, definitely. It's well, we won't go much further than that because otherwise we start spoiling things. And I want people to read this because it is such a beautiful story. Tell us about some more photography experiences. I saw on your website, it's not just Africa, it's I saw Laos and Australia and Scotland. Do you have any stories from those countries, any photography stories that you would like to share or anything that really, you already shared the wonderful story about the bones. That was amazing. But uh, I mean, it seems like you've met some amazing people or have photographed some beautiful people, beautiful
Um,
cultures.
yeah, one beautiful culture that most people don't know about is in Mongolia.
Okay.
And I was there to photograph the Golden Eagle Festival,
Oh,
which
wow.
happens in October. Mind you, winter in Mongolia starts in September.
Okay.
It's
Wow.
very cold in winter
Yeah.
in Mongolia, which sort of butts up against Kazakhstan with a little bit of Russia and a little bit of China, about 20
Okay.
miles meeting there. And so we were there to photograph this incredible festival. It is mostly Mongols and Kazakhs. They ride their Mongolian horses, which are
Oh, cool.
shorter
Cool. Yeah.
and stockier than any horses anybody else is familiar with. And these horses go forever. And I remember being put on a horse to ride it. And I was like, well, what's its name? Thinking I'd bond with it. And they're like, we don't name horses, it's a horse.
Horse.
So we were there and at the near the end of the festival. And yes, almost everybody there was Muslim, but they were drinking and there was a lot of vodka going down. And they were, by the end of the last day, when they're about to hand out the awards, they were very drunk. And um, the judges announced the winners, and the competitors didn't like who was
Oh,
announced as the winner.
oh, interesting.
And so one of the competitors sort of lunged his horse forward, and a police officer tased the horse.
Oh my gosh.
You do not tase an eagle hunter's horse. And so the place erupted, and I'm standing there shooting taking pictures, and my fixer is going, "No, no, madam, we must leave now. Madam, this is getting very dangerous." I'm like, "No, no, this is great. We've got to
This
put
is great. I love
it's
it.
snowing and I can't feel my feet. I've got these huge heavy mucklucks on and I'm sort of stomping around trying to get feeling in my feet and I'm shooting this. And finally, my husband was there with me and he and the fixer just dragged me away. Put
I
me
love it.
in the Jeep.
You're leaving.
Yeah, I did. I left.
Yeah.
But
Wow. Wow. So I love it. I love it. It's just I mean, the world really in some ways is a small place and we're all so interconnected and books like yours can help bring us together that way. So I
Well,
love that. And stories like yours.
I have a fun small world story that happened
Okay, I'd
in
love to hear it.
Mongolia. I I was staying in a gear camp. Gears are like yurts except a little taller. And
Okay.
I thought, wouldn't it be fun to photograph the gear being taken down the day after the festival ended and people were leaving? And so I'm there photographing the guys taking down the gears. And we had heard that there were people from Hollywood sharing this gear camp with us. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I'm
Sounds like something I would,
photographing,
yeah.
and this guy comes over, and it was Peter Coyote. The
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so we're chatting, and we morph into speaking in French because he's done a lot of French films, and it was this long conversation. He's like, "Where are you from?" "I'm from Milwaukee." "Really?" "I used to work in Milwaukee. Do you know
Oh
Brady
my
Street?"
gosh.
"Well, yeah, I go to Brady Street all the time because it's my favorite lunch places." And he said, "Well, where are you from originally? Because you don't have a Midwest accent." And I said, "New Jersey." He said, "You're kidding. So am I." We were born in the same hospital and
Oh
spent our
my
early
gosh.
childhood not only in the same town, living in apartments on the same street.
Oh my gosh. But you had to go to Mongolia to find that out. I love that. Wow. Oh, that's so cool. What a great thing. And again, everyone listening, go to Jeanette's website. I always give out their websites because it's where you find books, but the photographs site, I plan on going back and going through more. I didn't have time to go through all of them, but they're just incredible. Just absolutely incredible. Oh,
Thank
just like the
you.
book. So, do you sell your
Thank you.
photographs? Can people buy them or?
Yeah, just there's a contact page at the very end, and
Okay.
contact me. And I absolutely sell photographs. I have a gallery show for people in Milwaukee. I have a gallery show coming up with an
Oh,
opening on
cool.
May 17th.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Well, awesome. Well, it's fun to have a photographer and a writer on. And before we wrap up here, you have another series, and it also
I
has
do.
a animal character, a canine character behind the lens. And I'm seeing on the poster behind you, double exposure. That's the second
That
book?
double exposure is the second
Nice.
for all of you people who can read backwards. And the rule of thirds is
I
the
love it.
third. Do you sense a pattern here?
I'm sensing a theme and a pattern. I love it. I love the titles.
And this is my little novella.
Oh,
I
cool.
had planned a six-book series. And when I got to the third book, which is set in August 2021, and I have to say, on August 15th, 2021, I was glued to my computer because that's when the Taliban were moving in to take over Kabul.
Okay.
And I had written a very different The Rule of Thirds. And I looked at that manuscript and I said, I can't even submit it to the publisher. It's so tone deaf given what's happening now
Right.
in Afghanistan. So I was able to save the first chapter and I deleted the rest of the manuscript.
Wow. Okay.
And then I
Wow.
rewrote it and I decided it's done.
Yeah.
However, I was a blog guest on somebody's blog, and as I always do, read the blog ahead of time of from other people. And one of her other guest authors said, there are an awful lot of bookmarks and refrigerator magnets that end up in people's trash.
Mhm.
And she said, so as swag, I decided to write a Regency romance. She's
Well,
That's what she does. And she said, put all my characters together, wrote 10 pages, and printed it up, and that's what I hand out as swag.
oh,
And I said,
wow. Oh,
I could
fascinating.
do that. And
Yeah.
about the same time, one of the book clubs that I go to had said, "We don't think this story is done." So I said, "Okay, I will write this book, Depth of Field, and it will be a little 60 to 70 page novella where I wrap everything up."
I
So
love it.
that's the fourth book.
And it has a dog character in all the books. Is he throughout all the books?
Finn is the black
I
lab
love
is
it.
in all four books, and
Okay.
he appears at critical emotional moments,
As every lab should. Yes.
as every lab does.
Yes.
And I just, animals are so important. And just going back to the women who stand between for a moment, um, the animals are there as subjects being presented, but I also try to use animals to heighten the suspense and the tension and
Yeah,
as
you
an
do. Yeah.
objective correlative for the other characters' emotions.
Yeah.
So,
And you do it beautifully. I mean, it's just, I could talk for hours with you on this book, on your experiences. I mean, it's
thank
just
you.
so beautifully done. And it's a wonderful read it allows me, I've never been to Africa, and it allowed me to visit there through your words. So
Thank
thank
you.
you. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Got
really
to
beautiful.
smell the dust.
I did. Yeah, I felt that rag around my face, and yeah, it's just tremendous writing. So anyone who loves Africa, who loves animals, it's the women who stand between. Make sure you go pick up a copy, check out Jeannee's other books as well. And until next time, keep your tails wagging and pages turning. Thanks for joining me today. Sit, Stay, Read is a part of the Authors on the Air Global Network. If you enjoyed today's author interview, be sure to leave a review and share the episode with a fellow animal-loving reader. If you're curious about the world of working dogs and wilderness adventures, please check out my books at KathleenDonnelly.com. Until next time, curl up with your best furry friend and sit, stay, read.